What would you do if your own parent traded your life for a promise of wealth and power? In the remote corners of Chukotka, where the polar night lasts for months and communication with the outside world is cut off for weeks due to snowstorms, the boundaries between reality and ancient superstitions blur. In 1989, as the Soviet Empire was creaking at the seams, a strange light appeared in the sky above the small Chukchi village of Yulin. Old-timers said that this had happened before, but what happened next was kept top secret in the KGB archives for many years. Our investigation will plunge you into a story that chills the blood even of seasoned special service operatives. If you enjoy such documentary investigations, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes about secrets that have been hidden from us for decades. It all started with a routine report from the Border Service about unusual light phenomena in the sky over the Chukotka Peninsula. Lieutenant Igor Sokolov, who was on duty that night at a radar station near the village of Yulin, was the first to notice the anomaly. In his report, which was later removed from the archives and classified, he described the phenomenon as an elongated luminous object hovering over the hills 2 kilometers from the seashore. The object, according to Sokolov, did not resemble any known aircraft and moved at a speed incredible for that time, making sharp turns impossible for airplanes or helicopters. The temperature in the radar station suddenly dropped several degrees. Even though the heating system was working properly, Sokolov later recalled in his memoirs, published only in 2018 after his death. The hands on all mechanical clocks stopped at 23:17 minutes, and all electronic devices within a radius of 300 meters malfunctioned for 42 minutes. We contacted the command via a backup communication channel, but received a strange order not to take any action and to wait for the arrival of a special group from Moscow. What is surprising is that on the same night, a local resident, an old man named Tinajurgan, 68 years old, a hereditary hunter and shaman, as his fellow villagers called him, went with his 17-year-old daughter Nuniad towards the hills where the strange object had been spotted. According to neighbors, the old man took with him only a small bag which, as it later turned out, contained ancient shamanic artifacts passed down in his family from generation to generation. A witness, Ain Anna, Nuniad's cousin, later told KGB investigators, Tinajurgan was acting strangely. For several days before that, he hardly slept, constantly muttering something in an ancient dialect that even the village elders could barely understand. He said that those they had been waiting for thousands of years would soon come, and that he was ready to make a great sacrifice for the well-being of our people. From archival file number 54289, it follows that Tinajurgan and his daughter left the village at approximately 20 hours, 200. A neighbor, Edikvina, saw them leaving towards the hills. The girl was crying and didn't want to go, but the old man was dragging her by the hand. She shouted that she was afraid, that she didn't want to become a bride of the sky, as he told her. I wanted to intervene, but Tinajurgan looked at me with such a look that I froze on the spot, as if paralyzed. The woman told investigators. At 2 hours in the night, Tinajurgan returned to the village alone. According to eyewitnesses, the old man looked significantly younger than when he left. The wrinkles on his face smoothed out, his gray hair became darker, and his gait changed from a shuffling one to a light and springy one, like that of a young man. In his hands he held a strange object that glowed with a dim blue light. The object was the size of an adult man's fist and had the shape of a polyhedron with incomprehensible symbols on each face. The next morning, a special KGB group led by Colonel Dmitry Volkov arrived in the village. Officially, their visit was explained as a check of the border post's combat readiness. But the real purpose was different. The group immediately set up a cordon around Tinajurgan's house and began questioning the old man. What exactly Tinajurgan told them still remains a mystery, but from the declassified parts of the report it follows that the interrogation lasted 17 hours without interruption. Meanwhile, the second part of the KGB group went to the hills in search of Nuniad. What they found there was so shocking that most of the documents are still classified. However, we managed to find a witness to those events, a former warrant officer of the border troops, Alexei Nikonov, who was assigned to the KGB group as a guide. We found a perfectly round bald spot on the snow, about 15 meters in diameter. The snow there was not melted. It simply disappeared, as if it had been cut off in a perfectly even layer. The soil under it was dry and warm, which is impossible for Chukotka at this time of year. In the center of the circle, we found strange tracks, unlike either human or animal tracks. They were three-toed, about 30 centimeters long, with unusual indentations in the center, as if the weight of the creature that left them was distributed differently than in terrestrial animals or humans. Nikonov said, "The old man's daughter was never found." According to the official version announced to local residents, Nuniad got lost in a snowstorm and died. Her body was allegedly carried away to the sea. However, no one in the village believed this version. There was no snowstorm that night. The sea was on the opposite side from where the old man and his daughter went, and Nuniad, who grew up in the tundra, could not get lost in territory familiar to her since childhood. What is even stranger is that no one in the village showed particular concern about the girl's disappearance, as if all the residents were gripped by a strange apathy. Only one old woman named Rybkargina, a healer and distant relative of Nuniad's mother, dared to speak about what had happened. According to her, Tinajurgan performed an ancient rite that had been the subject of legends in their tribe for thousands of years. In the most ancient times, when our people first came to this land, creatures descended from the sky whom our ancestors called Ilo Lid, the heavenly guests. They taught people hunting, fishing, and survival in harsh conditions, but in return demanded that every 100 years they be given a young girl, pure in soul and body. These girls became brides of the sky and went with the creatures forever. The last such case was at the end of the 10th century, but then the Russian authorities did not believe the stories of the local residents and wrote off the girl's disappearance as an accident, Rybkargina said. Colonel Volkov ordered the healer to be detained and interrogated. After a long interrogation, she suddenly changed her story, stating that she had made it all up due to senile dementia. 3 days later, Rybkargina died of a heart attack. At least that was stated in the official conclusion. Tinajurgan, meanwhile, began to exhibit unusual abilities. He could predict the weather with amazing accuracy, find hunters lost in the tundra without fail, indicating the direction of the search, and heal diseases by laying on hands. Local residents were both afraid of him and drawn to him for help. The strange object that the old man brought with him after that night, he kept in a special box made of walrus bone, opening it only in special cases. The KGB group spent 2 weeks in the village. During this time, they interviewed all the residents, collected soil samples from that strange circle on the hill, and took many photographs and measurements. Before leaving, Volkov had a long conversation with Tinajurgan in private. After this conversation, the old man received a new house, the only one in the village with electricity and telephone communication. And a month later, a group of geologists arrived in Yulin, allegedly looking for a deposit of rare metals. What they found changed the life of the entire village. In the hills, not far from the place where Nuniad disappeared, geologists found a rich deposit of rare earth metals, including neodymium dysprosium, which are critically important for the defense industry. Within a year, a modern base was built in the village, a road was built, and new houses appeared for specialists. Tinajurgan received the position of official consultant to the expedition and a considerable, for those times, amount of money. He no longer hunted or fished like other local residents, but spent all his time sitting on the porch of his new house and looking at the sky. In 1991, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the expedition was shut down. Most of the specialists left, leaving the village once again to the mercy of fate. But Tinajurgan, who by that time looked 30 years younger than his real age, remained. According to local residents, every year on the day of his daughter's disappearance, he went to that very hill and spent the whole night there talking to someone in a strange language, unlike any of the dialects of the indigenous peoples of Chukotka. In 1997, a new strange event occurred. At night, a strange light appeared over the hill again. The next morning, Tinajurgan disappeared. His house was left open, things untouched, but the old man himself disappeared without a trace. The only thing that disappeared with him was that very strange glowing object that he kept in the walrus bone box. The local authorities conducted a formal search, but quickly called it off, stating that the old man had probably gone to visit relatives in another village and had not warned his neighbors. However, Tinajurgan had no relatives in other villages. All his loved ones lived in Yulin, and none of them had seen the old man after that night. What happened next, we learned from documents declassified in 2010 by the FSB, the successor to the KGB. The case files state that 3 days after Tinajurgan's disappearance, a special group arrived in the village of Yulin, led by the same Dmitry Volkov, by that time already a major general of the FSB in retirement. Officially, the group was assessing the possibility of resuming the geological expedition, but their real mission was different. They brought with them special equipment for detecting radiation and electromagnetic anomalies. For a week, the group thoroughly investigated Tinajurgan's house and the hill where his daughter had disappeared 8 years ago. According to the report, they discovered significant anomalies in the space-time continuum within a radius of 200 meters from the epicenter of contact. What exactly this wording meant was not specified in the documents, but the most interesting thing was found in the crawl space of Tinajurgan's house. There they found a journal that the old man had kept since the disappearance of his daughter. The journal was written in a mixture of Russian and ancient Chukchi dialect, with inclusions of strange symbols that did not correspond to any known writing system. The group managed to partially decipher the records thanks to linguists and anthropologists involved in the work. From the deciphered records, it followed that Tinajurgan had indeed voluntarily given his daughter to creatures whom he called messengers of the stars. In return, he received not only that strange glowing object, but also knowledge of the location of minerals, as well as the ability to heal diseases and predict the future. But the most shocking thing was that the old man described regular contacts with these creatures after that night. According to him, they came to him in his sleep and showed him strange visions of other worlds and the future of Earth. In one of the last entries, dated a week before his disappearance, Tinajurgan wrote, "They said that the time has come. Nuniad has become the mother of a new race. Her children will soon come to Earth. They want me to see my daughter and grandchildren. I must be ready for the journey. Korobchek," that's what he called the glowing object, "will show me the way." What is even more surprising is that the journal contains strange diagrams and drawings resembling technical drawings of incredibly complex devices. Experts studying these diagrams concluded that they depict technologies far superior to the modern level of science. Some of the diagrams resemble drawings of quantum computers and anti-gravity field generators, technologies that even today exist only in theory or in early experimental stages. After a week of work in the village, Volkov's group unexpectedly curtailed its activities and hastily left Yulin. According to a local resident, Grigory Naukin, who worked as a translator for the group, the reason for such a hasty departure was a strange incident on the last night of their stay. They set up equipment on the hill and measured something all night. Suddenly, all the instruments showed a spike in activity and an aurora of an unusual shape appeared over the hill. It was composed of geometric patterns, which never happens with ordinary aurora. Then one of the scientists, a young guy, screamed and fell to the ground unconscious. When he was brought to his senses, he was saying strange things in a language that no one understood, even me, although I know all the dialects of our region. Volkov ordered us to pack up immediately, and 2 hours later, they had already flown away by helicopter, Naukin said. According to the medical report which we found in the archives, that young scientist Sergei Lipatov, after returning to Moscow, was placed in a closed FSB clinic with a diagnosis of acute psychosis of unclear etiology. He spent 3 years there, constantly drawing strange symbols and repeating phrases in an unknown language. Doctors tried to treat him with various methods, including experimental drugs, but to no avail. In 2001, something amazing happened. Lipatov suddenly came to his senses, spoke in Russian, and declared that he was completely healthy. Medical tests showed that his brain was functioning normally. Moreover, a brain scan revealed unusual changes in the structure of the hippocampus and frontal lobes, responsible for memory and higher cognitive functions. According to doctors, Lipatov's brain demonstrated activity atypical for a human being. Some areas worked with an efficiency exceeding the norm by 3 to 4 times. After being discharged from the clinic, Lipatov disappeared from the radar of the special services. According to unconfirmed reports, he moved to a remote village in Siberia, where he lives as a hermit to this day. Local residents say that he is building a strange device in the basement of his house and often looks at the starry sky for a long time. In 2005, a geological expedition returned to Yulin. This time it was led by a private company with foreign capital. They resumed the development of the rare earth metal deposit discovered on the instructions of Tinajurgan. Interestingly, the technical consultant of this company was none other than Dmitry Volkov, the former Major General of the KGB FSB. During the work, the expedition discovered something unusual. Deep under the permafrost layer, an object of artificial origin in the shape of a disc, about 10 meters in diameter. The object was made of an unknown metal that did not corrode and did not react to any chemical exposure. Symbols identical to those in Tinajurgan's journal and which Lipitov drew in the clinic were found on its surface. The further fate of this find is unknown. 2 weeks after the discovery of the object, the territory of the deposit was declared a closed zone due to the danger of radioactive contamination. All work was stopped, the personnel evacuated, and access to the area blocked by the FSB and the military. According to some reports, the object was removed from the ground and transported to a closed scientific center near Moscow. In 2010, another strange event related to this story occurred. A young woman arrived in the village of Yulin, introducing herself as Anna Tinajurgan. She claimed to be the granddaughter of that very old man and was looking for information about her grandfather and mother. The woman spoke Russian with a slight accent, but did not know Chukchi. According to her, she grew up in a foster family in Europe and only recently learned about her roots. Local residents were suspicious of her, since Tinajurgan had no other children except the missing Nuniad, and therefore could not have any grandchildren. However, the woman showed old photographs depicting Tinajurgan in his youth, photographs that no one in the village had. Moreover, she accurately described the interior of the old man's house and the location of the cache in the crawl space where his journal was kept, information that she could not have known if she was not related to him. Anna spent 2 weeks in the village asking old-timers about the events of the 80s and often visiting that very hill where her alleged grandfather and mother disappeared. Then she left as suddenly as she had appeared. It is noteworthy that on the night before her departure, the residents of the village observed an unusual aurora with geometric patterns, similar to what Volkov's group had seen in 1997. In 2015, an anonymous source from among former FSB officers handed over to journalists part of the documents concerning the Yulin incident, as it was called in official correspondence. From these documents it followed that the special services had not stopped monitoring the area of the alleged contact all these years. Moreover, the documents mentioned other similar cases in the territory of the former USSR, in Kazakhstan, Siberia, and on the Kola Peninsula. According to these documents, the FSB developed a special program to study the phenomenon, codenamed Protocol 8. As part of this program, special rapid response groups were created, which were sent to places of alleged UFO sightings or other anomalous phenomena. However, the goal of these groups was not only to record the phenomenon, but to establish contact with the creatures, who in the documents were called alien visitors. Of particular interest are mentions of the so-called hybrid individuals, the alleged descendants from the union of humans and alien visitors. The documents indicated that such individuals outwardly differ little from ordinary people, but possess unusual abilities, increased intelligence, resistance to diseases, telepathy, and even the ability to influence electronic devices with the power of thought. According to a secret directive dated 2003, all regional FSB units were instructed to identify and monitor individuals exhibiting signs of non-standard cognitive and parapsychological abilities. Such people should be secretly checked for genetic anomalies and, if the hypothesis of their non-humanoid origin is confirmed, sent to a special research center. This information sheds new light on the story of Tinajurgan and his daughter. It is possible that the old man did not simply give his daughter to unknown creatures, but made some kind of agreement with them, the result of which was the appearance of hybrid individuals capable of living among people, and Anna, who introduced herself as the old man's granddaughter, could well have been one of these individuals. It is also interesting that in recent years there has been an unusual concentration of gifted children in the Yulin area. According to statistics from the local education department, the percentage of school children with an IQ above 130 in this village is 4 times higher than the national average. Many of these children possess unusual abilities, phenomenal memory, mathematical talents, artistic talent, and what is particularly interesting, most of them were born after 2010, that is, after the visit of the mysterious Anna Tinajurgan. In 2022, an international scientific expedition studying changes in permafrost due to global warming discovered another strange anomaly in the Yulin area. At a depth of about 50 meters, they recorded a perfectly spherical cavity with a diameter of about 30 meters. Inside the cavity, the temperature was plus 20 degrees Celsius, which is impossible for this depth in permafrost conditions. When scientists tried to explore the cavity with a remotely controlled robot, something inexplicable happened. The robot transmitted several frames showing strange metal structures and a pulsating light, after which communication with it was lost. All attempts to restore contact were unsuccessful. The next day, the area of the expedition's work was cordoned off by people in military uniforms without insignia. The scientists were explained that unexploded ordnance from the Second World War had been found in this area, and further research was temporarily suspended for security reasons. However, according to one of the expedition members, who wished to remain anonymous, the real reason was different. In the evening before the arrival of the military, 2 civilians in suits came to our camp. They talked for a long time with the head of the expedition in his tent. We didn't hear what they were talking about, but when the head came out, he was pale and immediately announced the termination of all work. And in the morning the military appeared and we were evacuated by helicopters, the scientist said. According to him, before the evacuation, all members of the expedition had their phones, cameras, and all information carriers confiscated. Everyone was forced to sign a document of non-disclosure of information related to the expedition for a period of 30 years. Moreover, upon returning to Moscow, some participants of the expedition, including the head, were summoned for long conversations to a certain closed scientific institution. What is even stranger is that during the following year, 4 out of the 12 participants of that expedition suddenly changed their place of work and moved to closed scientific cities. One of them, geophysicist Andrei Severtsev, according to unconfirmed reports, is now working in a secret laboratory engaged in research in the field of quantum teleportation, a technology that theoretically allows objects to be moved over long distances instantaneously without passing through intermediate space. In 2023, a local hunter, Umkaral Turjan, discovered a strange object in the tundra, approximately 5 kilometers from the hill where Tinajurgan and his daughter disappeared. It was a metal cube with an edge of about 30 centimeters, covered with the same mysterious symbols that were in the old shaman's journal. The object was warm to the touch despite the sub-zero ambient temperature and emitted a barely audible hum. Raljan brought the find to the village and showed it to the local history teacher, who contacted the local history museum in Anadyr. However, before representatives of the museum could arrive, FSB officers arrived in Yulin, confiscated the object, and conducted a lengthy interrogation of the hunter. After their departure, Raljan avoided contact with his neighbors for some time, and then unexpectedly received a significant amount of money from an unknown charitable foundation and moved to the mainland. Interestingly, at about the same time, several scientific journals published articles on a breakthrough in understanding quantum gravity, one of the most difficult problems in modern physics. The authors of these articles were scientists from a closed research institute, and among them was that very Sergei Lipatov, who 20 years ago experienced a strange psychosis after an expedition to Yulin. The articles described a theoretical mechanism for creating space-time tunnels. In essence, these were scientific justifications for the possibility of interstellar travel without overcoming huge distances in the traditional way. These scientific publications caused a real sensation in the scientific world. Many well-known physicists expressed skepticism about the proposed theories, considering them too revolutionary and detached from the current level of knowledge. However, after some time, a group of independent researchers from the European Centre for Nuclear Research, CERN, confirmed the theoretical possibility of the existence of the described mechanisms. In an interview with the scientific journal Nature, one of the heads of CERN stated, "What Russian colleagues are proposing looks fantastic but mathematically impeccable. If their theory is correct and if humanity can create technologies based on these principles, it will mean not just a new chapter in the history of science, but the beginning of a completely new era, the era of interstellar travel." It is noteworthy that in the same interview, the scientist mentioned a strange fact. When we tried to contact the authors of the articles to discuss some details of their theory, we were told that they were on a long expedition without the possibility of communication. And when we contacted their institute directly, we were informed that they did not have such a research group. This is quite unusual for the scientific community. Returning to the events in Yulin, it is worth noting one more curious fact. In recent years, an unusual natural phenomenon has been observed in the village and its surroundings. Plants have begun to grow where there used to be only tundra. Biologists studying this phenomenon have found that the soil contains unknown microorganisms that promote plant growth, even in the extreme conditions of the far north. Genetic analysis of these microorganisms showed that they do not correspond to any known species on Earth. Moreover, they have an unusual feature: the ability to very quickly adapt to changes in the environment and modify the genetic code of other organisms with which they come into contact. This ability of microorganisms has caused serious concern among some scientists, who fear the uncontrolled spread of genetically modified life forms. However, other researchers see this as a potential solution to the problem of hunger and desertification. Indeed, if such microorganisms could be controlled, they could transform barren lands into fertile fields. Interestingly, the center of distribution for these microorganisms is located precisely in the area of that very same hill where Tynagrigan and his daughter disappeared. And with each year, their area of presence expands, albeit rather slowly, by approximately 10 to 15 meters per year. In 2024, another strange event occurred in Yulin. A scientific expedition from the Institute of Genetics arrived in the village, officially to study the genetic characteristics of the indigenous population of Chukotka. However, the true purpose of the expedition, as it later turned out, was different. The scientists took blood and tissue samples not only from adult residents of the village but also from children. They showed particular interest in those gifted children born after 2010. According to one of the local residents, the scientists were extremely alarmed by the results of the analyses and immediately contacted Moscow via satellite phone. They spoke of unnaturally rapid evolution and a potential new branch of humanity. One of them, an elderly professor, was so agitated that he suffered a heart attack right during the phone conversation, recounted the local paramedic who provided first aid to the scientist. After this incident, a group of people in civilian clothes but with military bearing hastily arrived in the village. They confiscated all the expedition's materials and evacuated the scientists. A week later, representatives from the Ministry of Health arrived in Yulin and announced the launch of an enhanced medical care program for children in the region. As part of this program, about 20 children were sent to a boarding school near Moscow for in-depth examination and health improvement. Remarkably, these were precisely the children whose blood had aroused such interest among the geneticists. And even more strangely, not one of these children ever returned to the village. Their parents were informed that the children had been sent to special schools for gifted students in various cities of Russia, and that all expenses for their education and accommodation were being covered by the state. The parents receive regular letters from their children and even speak to them via video call, but in-person meetings are postponed under various pretexts. According to one of the mothers, her son looks happy and healthy during video calls, but speaks in some kind of rehearsed phrases. He answers specific questions about his life evasively. In April of 2025, an event occurred that made many recall the story from 36 years prior. An unusual atmospheric phenomenon, similar to the Northern Lights but with distinct geometric patterns, was observed over Yulin and the surrounding area. The phenomenon lasted for about 3 hours, after which it suddenly disappeared. That same night, a mass power outage occurred in the village. All electronic devices, including satellite phones, failed. Communication with the outside world was interrupted for 24 hours. When it was restored, the residents discovered a strange change. The hill where Tynagrigan and his daughter had once disappeared had changed shape. A perfectly round crater, approximately 50 meters in diameter, had appeared at its summit. Local authorities attributed this to a natural phenomenon, a collapse of the ground due to thawing permafrost. However, geology specialists who studied satellite images noted that such a perfect crater shape could not be the result of natural processes. A week after this event, a group of high-ranking military personnel and scientists arrived in Yulin. The area around the hill was declared a restricted zone, and the residents of the village were strongly advised not to approach it or discuss what had happened with outsiders. According to unconfirmed reports, an object of artificial origin was discovered in the crater, resembling the same glowing object that Tynagrigan had received from the celestial visitors. But this object was significantly larger, about the size of a small car, and emitted an intense bluish glow. According to rumors, people began to experience hallucinations and headaches when attempting to approach the object. Electronic equipment failed within 10 meters of it. The only ones who could approach the object without negative consequences were 3 local children, direct descendants of those families with whom Tynagrigan had interacted after his first encounter with the celestial visitors. These children, according to eyewitnesses, not only did not experience discomfort near the object, but seemed to be able to interact with it in some way. They stood around it, holding hands, and quietly chanting something in a strange language, unlike either Russian or Chukchi. During this time, the object's glow became brighter and pulsed in time with their chanting. After several days of observation, the military decided to move the object to a special laboratory. However, when attempting to load it onto a transport helicopter, something inexplicable happened. The object suddenly changed its color of glow from blue to bright red, and a sphere of distorted space formed around it. Everything that fell into the sphere, tools, instruments, even stones, disappeared without a trace. After this incident, the operation to remove the object was suspended. Instead, a temporary research base with powerful radiation shielding was built around the crater. Special equipment for remote study of the object was brought there. But the most amazing thing happened 1 month after the object's discovery. Several children unexpectedly returned to Yulin from those who had been sent to study in Moscow. They arrived without warning on a private helicopter, accompanied by 2 men and a woman who introduced themselves as employees of a special educational project. These children, according to relatives, had changed greatly. They looked older than their years, spoke confidently, and used scientific terms that were not typical for their age. But most importantly, they insisted on being taken to the new object, claiming that they knew how to handle it. The military initially refused to allow the children near the object, but after all attempts to study it remotely failed, they agreed to an experiment under strict supervision. The children were brought to the crater, equipped with protective suits and vital sign sensors. What happened next is described in a secret report, partially declassified only recently. The children approached the object without visible negative consequences. They stood around it, holding hands, and began to utter strange sounds. Not words, but sounds resembling electronic signals. The object reacted, changing the intensity and color of its glow. After a few minutes of such communication, the object suddenly opened up like a flower, revealing its internal structure. Inside was a crystal similar to the one Tynagrigan had, but significantly larger. The crystal pulsed, emitting energy of an unknown nature. One of the children, a 12-year-old girl named Ina, approached the crystal and touched it. At that moment, all the instruments at the research base failed, and the people nearby lost consciousness for a few minutes. When they regained consciousness, the children and the object had disappeared. All that remained at the site of the crater was a perfectly smooth platform, as if melted from stone. No trace of the children or the object could be found, despite a large-scale search operation. 2 days after the disappearance, the parents of the missing children received strange messages on their mobile phones. The messages contained only coordinates, latitude and longitude of a place in the tundra, approximately 20 kilometers from the village. When a search party arrived there, they found the children sitting in a circle on the ground. The children were healthy, but in a trance-like state. They did not react to external stimuli and repeated the same phrase in an unknown language. The object was not with them. The children were taken to a medical center, where they gradually regained consciousness. However, they remembered nothing of what had happened. The last thing they remembered was approaching the object at the request of the military. Medical examinations revealed strange changes in the children's brains. Their neural connections had been reorganized, and new structures, not typical of the normal human brain, were found in the frontal lobes. The electroencephalogram showed activity in frequency ranges not normally recorded in humans. Interestingly, after this incident, the children began to exhibit unusual abilities. They could accurately predict the weather, find lost items without seeing them, and solve complex mathematical problems without calculations. Some of them claimed to be able to hear the thoughts of those around them. The military wanted to take the children for further study, but unexpectedly received an order to cease the operation and leave Yulin. According to unconfirmed reports, this order came from the very top of the state hierarchy after the same strange light phenomena that had been seen over Chukotka were observed in the sky above Moscow. Since then, the official position of the authorities towards the Yulin phenomenon has changed. Instead of classifying information, a process of gradual disclosure began. Some archival documents concerning the events of the 1980s and 1990s were declassified. Articles began to appear in scientific journals about the possibility of the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations and the prospects for contact with them. In September of 2025, the Guests from Space, Myths and Reality exhibition opened at the Moscow Planetarium, where some artifacts purportedly related to the Yulin incident were presented for the first time, including copies of pages from Tinagrygan's journal and photographs of strange symbols discovered on objects of artificial origin. Among the exhibits, a glass cube with a holographic projection of a three-dimensional model of the object that was found in the crater attracted particular attention. Visitors noted strange sensations when looking at this model. Some felt inexplicable anxiety, others, on the contrary, euphoria and a surge of energy. But the most amazing thing happened on the third day of the exhibition. A woman strikingly similar to the Anna Tinagrygan, who had come to Yulin in 2010, was spotted among the visitors. She stood in front of the hologram for a long time, and then unexpectedly addressed the tour guide in fluent Russian. "You are only showing a copy of the key, but you do not know the door it opens." When the exhibition staff tried to talk to her, she quickly left the premises. Surveillance cameras recorded her leaving the planetarium building, but she seemed to vanish into thin air on the street. None of the outdoor surveillance cameras recorded her further movement. That same evening, another strange event occurred. All the children who had participated in the contact with the object in Chukotka simultaneously, despite being in different cities of Russia, experienced the same vision. They described a woman resembling Anna Tinagrygan, who spoke to them in an unknown language and showed them images of another world, a world with two suns and strange crystalline structures. After this vision, the children began to draw identical diagrams resembling blueprints of complex devices. Specialists who studied these drawings concluded that they depicted a fundamentally new type of energy generator using quantum vacuum fluctuations, a theoretical source of unlimited and clean energy. In November of 2025, an international consortium of scientists announced the start of a project to create a prototype of such a generator based on the children's drawings. The consortium included specialists from Russia, China, India, the United States, and the European Union. The project was officially called New Horizon, but behind the scenes, it was simply called the Chukotka Project. Parallel to this, an influx of strange visitors began in Yulin. These were mostly people with scientific degrees, officially arriving for environmental or anthropological research. But local residents noticed that these scientists were more interested in that very same hill and the children exhibiting unusual abilities. In February of 2026, an unusual light phenomenon appeared over the hill again. This time it was much more intense and lasted almost 24 hours. The glow was visible even in neighboring villages located hundreds of kilometers from Yulin. After this phenomenon, Anna Tinagrygan reappeared in the village, but now she did not come alone. With her was an elderly man in whom the old-timers recognized, with amazement, that very same Tinagrygan. Despite the fact that he should have been over 100 years old, he looked no older than 60. And, most unbelievably, with them was a young woman whom Tinagrygan introduced as his daughter, Nununit, the very same one who had disappeared in the 1980s or 1990s. The woman looked about 25 years old, although she should have been over 50. Their appearance caused a real stir in the village. The news spread instantly, and a group of government representatives and scientists urgently flew to Yulin. However, Tinagrygan, his daughter, and granddaughter disappeared as suddenly as they had appeared. They left only a message, a strange crystal with a holographic projection that activates upon touch. The hologram showed a starry sky with unfamiliar constellations, and then an approach to a planet with two suns. On the surface of this planet, cities of crystalline structures were visible, as well as beings resembling humans, but with more delicate features and unusually large eyes. Then the image changed, showing the Earth and a sequence of events. Melting glaciers, global storms, volcanic eruptions, and then the appearance of those very same luminous objects all over the planet and groups of people interacting with them. The last image in the hologram was the most shocking. The Earth surrounded by a network of crystalline structures connected by energy flows, and people freely moving between these structures and the surface of the planet. And next to the Earth, other planets connected by the same energy flows, and among them that very same planet with two suns. The scientists who studied this crystal concluded that it was a message from a more advanced civilization. A message that shows a possible future for humanity if it accepts the help of this civilization. Today, in the year 2025, the Yulin phenomenon remains one of the most mysterious and controversial stories of modern times. Official science is still skeptical of the idea of contact with extraterrestrial intelligence, attributing strange phenomena to natural phenomena or mass hallucinations. However, there is a growing body of evidence indicating that something extraordinary did indeed occur in a remote corner of Chukotka. The story of the old man who sold his daughter to beings who descended from the heavens has transformed from a simple legend into a central element of a scientific investigation, the results of which could alter our understanding of humanity's place in the universe. What really happened in 1989 on the hill near the small Chukotka village? Were the celestial visitors representatives of an extraterrestrial civilization or a manifestation of a natural phenomenon unknown to science? And, most importantly, what awaits us in the future if contact really took place? Perhaps the answers to these questions are already known to those very same children who communicated with the mysterious object. Children whose minds were altered by contact with something beyond our comprehension. Children who may become a bridge between our world and worlds beyond Earth. And, who knows, maybe one day we will all see strange lights in the sky and understand that we have never been alone in the universe, that the beings who descended from the heavens into the small Chukotka village were only the first harbingers of coming changes, and that the story of Tynagrigan and his daughter Nununit is the beginning of a new chapter in the history of humanity, a chapter that is only beginning to unfold before us.